I am a full-time safety person, and I do have a day job where I'm the safety director for a large construction company. And I have created a safety management system through the need for me to try to automate some of the things to provide me more time to do the things that are important to me, which is spending time in the field and engaging with my team members and spending less time doing the things I dislike, such as doing paperwork. So, by the end of this presentation, I'm going to show you practical examples of my safety management system that I use. You'll understand the three basic components needed to build your own and hopefully develop some basic knowledge to develop and start working on your own safety management system. So, as I said, I am a safety director with a passion for people. I've been a full-time safety person for well over 30 years, and I can honestly say that I am one person who absolutely hates redundancy, doing the same things over and over and over. If you're a safety person, I'm sure that you are exactly like me, where you find yourselves doing the same tasks or typing the same email or creating the same training over and over and over. And for me, I want to spend time doing things where I'm actually spending the time with the people and educating them. I don't mind repeating myself when I'm educating. I just hate doing the same thing and sending the same emails over and over or spending my time doing paperwork. So when I look at ways to reduce things, this is where I start looking at my safety management system. So let me give you some of the pros and of course some of the cons of a safety management system. So if you have your one that you currently pay for, you know that you're paying roughly 18,000 bucks a month for, versus what I spend is about $180 or a year for my safety management system. One of the pros is that it's custom. I can create it to look and feel and work any way that I want and get the data that I want and look at it in the way that I want it to look. Um, Another benefit is the data belongs to my company. It doesn't belong to some third-party vendor where they can use my data to do analytics for my company or a barrage of companies overall. Additionally, the data is portable, so it can be moved in any system. So if in, let's say in 5 years, my company's like, you know what, we don't want to use your safety management system. We want to go with this canned approach. I can take my data and I can import it into that other system so I don't lose all the lagging and leading indicators that I've worked so hard to gather and gain over the last years that we're using this program. Now, for the cons, it takes time to develop. It's not hard. Trust me when I tell you it's not hard, because if I can do it, anybody can do it. But it does take time to develop, and you may require, hopefully not, IT's help for it. I did need my IT department's help to give me a license that I didn't already have. But other than that, I've been able to pretty much build my uh, safety management system to work the way that I want. The other thing is I really didn't want to involve IT because they have the lanes that they feel comfortable staying in, and my safety system colors way outside those lines. So I wanted to have the freedom to do what I needed to do. So let me give you some examples. I'm going to give you a list of what my system does, and I'm going to show you some screenshots. Some of them are pretty wonky, but I'll show you actually live examples at the end. So some of the things that we do currently is we're using it to track all of our incidents. So any auto accidents, property damage, whatever, we track it that way. I use it to track my learning management system through safety meeting sign-in sheets, as well as new employee onboarding. We track all of our equipment operators. We do their evaluations and their wallet cards through an automated system. We track PPE. We do our PPE reimbursements for prescription safety glasses and work boots. I track my hours. And then the one bullet that I skipped, the SIR and SSW, that is our SIR is our site inspection report. I have a small staff that I manage of safety professionals, and each safety professional will go out and do what we call a site inspection report, which is, for me, the way I look at it is it's a micro site visit. So they'll go out on a project and then they identify uh, three items that need correction, two items that were good. They'll open five individual site inspection report tickets. Each ticket takes about 1 minute to create. And then when they click submit, they'll get a receipt. I'll show you an example of what that receipt looks like in a little bit. and it pumps that leading indicator into a way for us to track it and to visualize it so we can see where we're having issues on projects or company wide or region wide. And then the SSWs are our site safety walks, which are completed by our foremen and superintendents on a weekly basis on every project. So the superintendent or the foreman will grab 3 or 4 team members from the project, and they'll walk around the project, identify any concerns that they have regarding safety. They'll click submit. That site safety walk gets scored and graded and published to the project folders, as well as it will allow us to determine whether or not we have issues with a particular group or particular superintendent. So when we do the project closeout, we know how we did on a particular project. So here's some examples. This is an example of our incident report form. I've obfuscated some of the personal identifiable information to protect my company. So this is an example of the PDF. I just took a screenshot of the first section. This was a particular injury that we had last week. This is an example of what this learning management system tracks. So as you can see, we have I grabbed a screenshot of 4 records here from Tampa and Orlando from the 6th of May. And what's hidden is the superintendent's name, the person conducting the meeting, and the person's name that attended the meeting. But you can see, like this particular week, we were doing fall arrest systems as our weekly safety topic. And the value to this is they sign one sign-in sheet through the tablet. And when they're done, let's say they had 20 people that attended this meeting, it'll actually put one person's name on each line with the topic. So that way I can go in and sort and find out exactly what training this particular team member received over any time frame that I needed. Or if I had an incident on a particular project, I can see, all the people that were on that project that attended that training on a particular day. Here is an example of the site inspection report, that SIR report that we do. This is done by, again, the safety department. This particular safety professional was looking at our green box where we store all of our site-specific safety plan, our PPE, our first aid kit, our fire extinguisher, and he was doing to make sure that it was properly stocked. Here's an example of our site safety walk that's completed by again, by our foreman and our superintendents, where it's graded and then they identify any issues that they found on the project. This one just happens to be 100%, so they had no deficiencies. Here's an example of the operator certification card for area and scissor lift operator. So you can see this one was done on March 13th. This is the wall card. So when they complete this particular evaluation, they can put in the team member's personal email address, and when they click submit, it'll automatically send them a copy of this PDF. Or if they plug in their phone number, we can actually text them a copy of it so they can have it on their phone. And if they need to prove it, that we also do our JHAs. So we have some 40 projects that are active at any given time. We may have 3 or 4 JHAs being completed on every project every day. So we complete it through here and it uploads it into a tracking system as well. So these are just some of the examples that I use for my safety management system. I use it for so much more. This is just something I didn't want to overwhelm you with examples. I'm sure at this point, some of you are wondering, well, how long did this take? Well, to be honest, the most involved system that I created was the incident tracking system, and it took me about 2 weeks of time to create. Not a whole lot of time, but there's an awful lot of moving parts. It tracks every incident. It holds all the documents. It automatically reports to the carrier through the click of one button. And it also automates my OSHA 300 log. So I don't ever have to worry about keeping my OSHA log up to date. It's always up to date. And again, it took me about 2 weeks to do. So I don't want you guys to feel overwhelmed. The project itself is very easy to do. It only revolves around 3 tools. So pick a project, work on it till it's done. And what's nice about it is you're going to use the same 3 tools over and over and over. And to be honest with you, a lot of stuff, I use the same system over and over and over. For example, when I do my weekly safety meetings, the only thing that changes is the title of the form. That's it. I duplicate the form, I duplicate the automation process, and I change the name of literally three things and click save, and it's done. So it may have taken me 2 hours to create the original form and the power and the automation for it. But when I go to replicate it, it takes literally the amount of time it takes to save it as a new name and change three values and click submit. That's all it takes. So you're going to gain momentum and gain traction and gain speed as you go through this process. So going back to what did it take to create the incident tracking form? I needed to lay it out because there were so many moving parts. So what I did is I created a flow chart, so I knew exactly what it was that I wanted my form to do. So up here, when the report is submitted through a Microsoft form, it creates a SharePoint item, creates a PDF of the record, adds the record to the list, and sends an email to a predefined distribution group that an incident happened. And then if it's an auto liability, it follows one path. If it's a property damage, it follows another. And workers' comp, general liability, they all follow different paths to input different values in different places within my SharePoint list, but it's all the same process over and over and over. And then when we're done with that, if we need to report it to the insurance company, that's a separate flow. So what are the tools that we use? Well, I use 5 tools to do it. Here are 4. So the first one is I use Microsoft Forms to gather the data. Now I'm going to show you guys an example of a form and a Power Automate and an Excel spreadsheet that I'm created just for this class or just for this webinar so we could play around with it so you guys can see the power of the system that you can create. And this whole system that I created for this webinar only took me about 2 hours to do, and that included laying everything out properly. So the first step is the Microsoft form. Then we use an application called Power Automate. I'm going to take a brief pause here and ask you to please put into the chat, and I'll review it later when I'm done with the presentation. How many of you, 2 questions. Number one is, how many of you know where Power Automate is, number one? And number two, how many of you have ever used Power Automate before? So if you could type that in the chat, I would appreciate it. Number one, do you know where Power Automate is? And number two, have you ever used Power Automate? And then the last 2 steps that I use, or last 3 steps I use, are somewhere to put the data. So you can use Excel, you can use SharePoint. I personally use both because I use SharePoint for public consumption and I use Excel for my private consumption. So if I want to manipulate the data in a safe way, I can use it. I'll use the Excel spreadsheet, but it also gives me a nice way of checks and balances. I can see was the data changed, what was the original data set to when the form was submitted. So there are ways to do that. And then for a bonus, how are you going to visualize the data? For me, I'm just going to be completely open and honest here. I never have been able to create a good Excel chart or Excel pie chart or bar chart. To me, it's always been confusing. They never represent the data that I really want in the way that I understand. But Power BI does it automatically and so effortlessly. I lean very heavily towards Power BI. So what did I create? Well, I created a Microsoft form to enter data into the OSHA 300 log, and then I have a place to put it. So the OSHA 300 log, if you have ever done a Google search of OSHA 300 log.xlsx, OSHA provides us with a really nice Excel spreadsheet that we can use to track our OSHA log and our OSHA 300 summary report. Well, what I did is I created a form for this course or this webinar to automate the entry into that. And I'm going to give you guys a QR code here in a few minutes. So when I put it on the screen, for those of you who want to participate, you can scan the QR code and you can fill it out and it'll automatically publish on my screen. And I'm going to stop sharing my presentation and share the Excel spreadsheet so you can actually see your data popping into that. So what are we asking for? Well, the name, the title, the date of the injury, where it happened, a description, a way to classify it, the number of lost or restricted days, and the incident type. And the reason why I thought this would be a good exercise is because Microsoft Forms does a lot of great things. Well, one of the things it doesn't do well is there's no way for you to actually grab a signature. So you can't sign a form, but pretty much everything else. You can attach pictures and documents. You can restrict content by, um, for example, like the number of workdays lost or the number of restricted workdays. I only want a number. I don't want somebody to be able to put the character letter E or F. I want them to only be able to put a number. And you can also add branching, which will allow you to tailor how the flow works. So you can build one form and provide ways for it. For example, if you pick lost time injury, you won't see the restricted workdays field. And if you choose restricted injury, you won't see the lost workdays. So you can branch it out that way. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the QR code up on the screen. So here, all you have to do is open your camera app on your phone, point it at that QR code. It'll give you a little way for you to click that link to that form, and it will open a Microsoft form for you to go ahead and fill out. Now, I'm not gathering any information or anything like that. That form should be accessible to everybody. And it's interesting. You can put wherever you're from in there for the location or where it happened. You can put whatever information you want in there. I'm just going to ask that you be respectful about the data that you're putting in, and I'll show you what it looks like in just a sec. So I'm going to go ahead and pull down this presentation for a minute. And this is what the Excel spreadsheet looks like that you guys are filling data in on. So once you click submit, it usually takes about 10 or 15 seconds for the data to start populating here. I may have to reload the forms. I'm not entirely sure how it's going to work with 100 people hitting it at the same time, but it should be fine. So there you can see and start seeing some of the data that's being populated. We had 3 people that have already completed it, and it's automatically updating in the background the OSHA 300A summary report on tab number 2. So if I go over here to this tab here, you can see where it's automatically calculating the total number of deaths, restricted number of lost duty cases, automatically starting to calculate all of those values, number of work days lost. So if you go back, you can start seeing that we've got some pretty interesting information being put in already, and it's calculating. So the nice part about this is you can literally have anybody in your organization completing this information anytime you want. You can build the Power Automate or the automation scheme to do it any way you want, and it's one portal. You give them one form, they fill out the form, and you can have it do any number of things that you want them to do. Let it go for a couple minutes, but as you can see, it's just continually adding to it. It's calculating the totals. It's calculating everything the way it should be. And this is all automated. It requires no input from me whatsoever. You guys are doing all the work. All right, so let me go ahead and put the presentation back up. And you're seeing the right screen, right?
Yep, I can see your
Okay,
screen.
good. All right, so how did I do this? Well, I'm going to walk you through the process. I have a bunch of screenshots that we're going to go through. The rest of the presentation is showing you a bunch of screenshots, and then I'm going to pull down the presentation. I'm going to pull up some live data, and I'm going to actually show you guys through it. We're going to give you guys the opportunity to ask me any and all questions that you have, and I'll do my best to answer them. All right. So how did we do this? Well, I used a program that Microsoft uses, which is called Power Automate, and they define it as a cloud-based automation platform that lets you create a workflow to automate repetitive tasks. Now, I use Power Automate for so many things, and I'll give you some practical examples of it in a minute. But one thing I want you guys to be aware of, I'm not a programmer. I don't want to be. I don't want to be an IT guy. I don't want anything to do with IT. I'm a safety guy. But what I do want is I know what data I want because I've been doing this for so long, and I know what I want it to look like, and I don't want to have to pay somebody else to do it or wait for IT to do it when it gets up on their timetable. So, like I said earlier, the whole process took me about 2 hours to create. That included creating the form and fixing the OSHA 300 log and the Power Automate that goes through it. So I'm going to show you how to get to Power Automate when we are done with the presentation. So I don't want you to get hung up on how did I get here. But what I wanted to do is spend a couple of minutes and walk you through the process. So the first step is, how is your Power Automate um, going to run? What's going to trigger it? So there are three tools. The first one is the automated cloud flow, which is what I used in this particular example that we had for today. So when you click submit for the Microsoft form, Power Automate would see that you click submit and it would perform a series of actions. The next example would be an instant cloud flow. So for example, one instant cloud flow that I use is I put a button on my incident tracking sheet. So when I click the button, it'll automatically report the incident to the insurance carrier. So it'll go pull all the files. So my incident tracking system will track any police reports or photos of a scene or workers' comp records or whatever I need to stick in there, training records or whatever. And when I click report to carrier, it'll go pull all of the attachments from the record, draft an email, address the email, send the email to the predefined list, and add a note to the record that says, on this day and this time, an email was sent reporting the incident to the insurance carrier. That's an example of an instant cloud flow. And the other one is this scheduled cloud flow, which I use it for backing up data. Every day at 5 o'clock, it'll go pull all the data and save it as a comma separated value, a CSV spreadsheet. So I have a backup every single day of anything that's on any of my tracking sheets. Additionally, one of the things, a use case that I just had is the foreman and superintendents wanted a list of all of the authorized qualified equipment operators within the company. So I have it every day at 5 a.m. It'll go pull a list, format it into a table, save it as a PDF. It will stick it on a website every day. So it'll remove the previous day's copy, put the new copy on the website, and then it will drop a link into a chat, a Teams chat, that here's the link to the new folder if you, rather than having them drill through a web page to find it. So those are the three different ways you can build a Power Automate. So this is what the Power Automate looks like. So when you build one, it follows you see the arrows. So the first step here is the very first part. So it says when a response is submitted. So this is the trigger. So when somebody clicks submit on this report, it will then grab the response ID, which means think of it like an Excel spreadsheet. So if you look at Excel and look at an Excel spreadsheet, all the way over on the left, it shows you the row numbers. So if the next row was row number 5, it'll go grab row number 5 and all the data across the row that was entered within that form and then do something with it, which I'll show you what that is in just a sec. Next thing we do is I wanted to grab the time that the form was submitted, but I'm kind of anal when it comes to how I want the date to look. So what I do is I don't want it to be in universal time. So most servers, when you click submit, it grabs the universal time, which is like 6 hours before Eastern Standard Time. I want it to be Eastern Standard Time. So what it'll do is it'll go grab the time from here, from this current time, and then it will, so that's in universal time, is the source. It'll convert it to Eastern Standard Time. And then I want it to change it so that it goes year, month, day. So this is the formula right here. I just copied it up here so everybody can see what it was. So it's the format the time of the current time and change it into year, month, day format. So I'm going to use that later. And then I'm going to have it put that into the table. So this is the form. I have it put it in an Excel spreadsheet. This is the file name. This is the table name. And I use the converted time and the response ID to line them up. So when you look at column A on that OSHA 300 log, that's the incident number is just nothing more than the date and the response ID. The team member's name, the job title, you just tell it where you want to put it in that table. And then what columns you want it to put the values in. And then it enables you to lay it out in any specific way that you want. So what's really nice about this is you can set up any kind of spreadsheet data you want or any type of SharePoint list that you want. And if you want to get crazy, once you get it stored somewhere, you can then start to visualize it. So one of the things that I use for visualization is Power BI. So this is an example of some screenshots that I grabbed from my Power BI. This is one that I use that tracks the incidents over time for what's the most common month of the year for having incidents or the day of the week, how many days since my last lost time injury or OSHA recordable. When I first started with my company, one of the things that I wanted to know was how successful or honestly how unsuccessful was my onboarding program, which I come to find out was not very successful because I had team members within their first six months of employment getting involved in incidents at a very high rate. In fact, if you look here, even in the first 2 years, it's well over um, uh, nearly double the team members are getting injured. So this is one way that you could visualize data. You can use it for tracking TRIR for an individual project or by the company. So I use it here. These are the projects. I just hid the data to protect the innocent or the guilty in this case about what the TRIR is on a particular project or the company. I told you I automated my OSHA 300 log. This is an example of my OSHA 300 log from last year. These are the site inspection reports that we use, the data that we break down. So those are practical examples of what I use mine for. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up now to any questions. Jen, do you have it to moderate? Let me put my glasses on so I can actually see.
There is some questions. Let me look.
I'm not surprised.
Um, and it seems like half and half have used or heard of Power Automate.
Okay.
Um, so Gavin asks, is this system reserved only for OSHA recordable injuries, no near misses? You could add in near misses, right, David?
Yeah, you could literally add any piece that you want. For me, what I do for my company is I have one incident report form, and what they do is if when they go in to pick what the incident is, they can pick auto liability or workers' comp or general liability, property damage, or near miss. And the Microsoft form will dynamically change because I use branching to show what it is, to branch out how the form looks.
Um, and then there's a question, were there any resources that were helpful to you to learn Power Automate and Power BI?
Oh my gosh, yes. So Google is my friend. I Google how to do X, Y, whatever it is I'm looking to do. For example, to get started, let me show you how, first of all, let me show you how to get to Power Automate. So the
Yeah, that
easiest way
might
to
be a
go
helpful step.
is the first thing I do is I go to my browser, whatever my browser of choice is. I just happen to use Chrome for work and I'm on a Mac, so I use Safari for personal stuff. So I go to office.com on a web browser. So it'll open a page that looks very similar to this one here on your browser. And then you click on this little waffle up here. That's what it's called. It's a waffle up here in the upper left-hand corner. And then you're looking for Power Automate. And this is what that icon looks like for Power Automate. So when I click on it, it'll open up Power Automate for me. And if you're going to create a new flow, you click create here. Or if you've already created some, you'll click my flows. So I'm just going to click my flows because I have um, probably 700 of them that I've created. So the, let me find the one for the OTI. So this is the one that I created for today. So as you can see, it shows me here how many people ran it today. So if I go here and I look at all the runs, like you can see everybody was hitting it out at like 118. But if I go into edit, you can actually see what that Power Automate looks like. So this is the entire process to do it. So as I showed you in the screenshots, let me open these up so you can see what they look like, and I'll walk you through each one. And I know this is being recorded, so you guys can ask Jen for a copy of this recording. I have no problem with that. And if you guys have questions, you can always reach out to me too. I'll help you any way that I can. So again, when a response is submitted, you pick the form and you can pick, it gives you, if you've created them, you'll have all the forms that you created to pick from. You need the response ID. So when you're here when you open this one up to get the response ID, it literally knows that that's what you want. So it only gives you one option. But if I go here, I get a laundry list of things that I can choose from over here from within the form. Okay. So when you pick the form up here at the top, it will give you a pick list that you can open up that you can grab data from to start using. So for here, I want to do a switch to follow a specific path. For example, if let me open up a couple of these. So within the Microsoft form, let me open that form real quick. So this is the form that I used. So when we go down here, the classify case, you see I have 4 options that you guys could have chosen. So if I go back to the Power Automate here, here are the 4 options. I only use 3 because by default, whatever the last one was will just follow the rest of the path. So here, if it was a death, it'll do this. And if it's a day away from work, it'll do this. So you can see here, column A, which is here, column A, which is that incident number, B, C, D, you can see it outlined here. It'll grab the date and the ID number. It'll put the employee's name, the job title, the date of the incident, where did it happen, the description. It'll put an X in row G, a 0 in K and L. But if we go over here to the days away from work, it's actually looking for K for the number of lost days, which is in that which we grabbed from that particular form. And if we go over here to restricted, it'll be the same thing, except it'll be restricted days instead of lost days. So all you're doing is telling it where to put the data within the form. And then if we go down here to incident type, over here, it's doing the same thing. Is it a skin disorder? Is it an injury? So if we go back to this report over here, where we have injury, skin disorder, respiratory, it'll put it in the right place.
David, we just had a question come in. How long do you spend fixing data that may have been entered incorrectly or inaccurately? And how do you control that?
Okay, so that actually happens fairly often in the beginning. People will put in wayward data, which is one of the reasons why when you create your form, so for example here, when you do the branching, it'll help you filter them to put the data in the right way. Like some of the crazy stuff that I'll get is for like picking the incident type. So uh, just yesterday, for example, I had somebody type in or submit an incident that they reported as a general liability where it should have been reported as a property damage. So when all I have to do is go into the data and literally just change one value and then save it. And then the next day, all the Power Automates update. Or excuse me, all the Power BIs will update the next day. So let me pull up the Power BI. I told you that I would share some Power BIs with you. So these are some of the Power BIs that I use. So again, because I'm on a Mac, Power BI only, you can only create a Power BI within um, Microsoft Windows. So I emulate Windows so I can create my Power BIs. So here's the incident. So I can literally, I want to show you the power of Power BI because this is live data. It's just old data. It's not stuff from like current data, but I can literally pick any year or any number of years and I can stack them and look at them side by side. So I can see where we had incidents. I can also pick if I only want to look at auto liability or general liability, or if I scroll over one, I can look at just workers' comp. You see how fast this is? It takes literally no time. I can look by region. I can look by area. You can even get like really crazy with it. Is it no, this one. So if I want to look and I want to see just the sites that are having issues with PPE that are only unacceptable, I can do it right there. So this is the power of Power BI. And this is all being generated using that same three steps. Microsoft Form, Power Automate, and SharePoint is what I use, only because SharePoint's easy to use. But you can literally set it up in a short amount of time. And what's nice about it is when you're setting it up, when you're setting this up, when you create your Microsoft form, like for example, you want to create a spreadsheet to store the data, you just go into view the responses and you open it in Excel. And this is all the data that you guys entered into the sheet. So I can take it right out of here and I can import this directly into SharePoint, or I can continue to allow it to stick it here. And I can upload all this data into the SharePoint list and create the SharePoint list with the data that's already been harmonized here on the fly. It just takes somebody to sit down and spend a few minutes to do it. If you want to learn how to use Power Automate is really, really simple. It is literally WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. You just tell it what you want it to do, and there's a bunch of different triggers that you could use. Like some of the triggers that I use all the time are they do these yes or no choices. So it's called a control. So if I go under control, you get this condition, which is yes or no. So if it equals this, do this. If it equals that, do nothing or do something else. So what I'd use is like, for example, one of the first use cases that I had for Power Automate is I wanted to create a quiz. So if I'm doing like a quarterly safety training in person, I don't want to keep track of the paperwork. I don't want to grade quizzes. I want to know immediately, hey, did they pass or did they fail? So I created a Microsoft form that had my quiz. And then I would put in here, does the answer to question one equal true? If it does, do this. If it's false, do this. And what you can do is you can have it add points. Like if I know I'm going to do like a 5 question quiz, each question's worth 20 points. So if the correct answer was true, add 20 points to this. If it's false, add 0. And you just keep adding. And at the end, you do a checksum. If the score equals 80% or better, send an email to HR that they passed. If not, send an email that they fail, send it back to the person that did the response, and tell them to try again. So there's a bunch of ways that you can use the yes or no. That's one way that I use it. You can also use it to add, just do basic addition. And I don't pay for any of the premium plugins with Power Automate. I do everything for free, including creating like a PDF. All right, you can create a PDF in like 3 steps where you would spend, I don't know, $600 or $700 every time you create a PDF, but you can do it in 3 steps on Power Automate for free.
David, a couple of more questions have come in.
Mhm.
Mark is asking, is there a way to share the Power Automate as a link, like for a specific form?
Um, I don't believe I understand the question. Power Automate is a process you can share them with other folks within your organization. You can't really share outside your organization super well. But you can share the link to a form. And what I will tell you is if you're going to share a form, be kind to yourself. When you go into here and you go collect response, click the shorten URL. So that way people don't get access to your raw form because you can actually manipulate the URL from the full URL string to gain access to the data. So just shorten it and they can't get access to it from there.
Good tip. Another question, can you upload existing historical data like that you already have in Excel and convert it into the forms Power Automate BI?
Okay, so when I started with my company, we had 5 years of historical data, which is how I got that. This, when I'm looking here at the incidents, that's how I got all of this historical data was by, um, I don't know what trigger I've set here, but this is how I got all this historical data in there was by taking the data runs from the insurance company. I got a raw dump of all 5 years that I could get. And yes, you can upload it in. That's actually very easy to do. Yeah.
Great question.
And you can use it to fix the data too. So what you do is you spend the time, that step that you're asking about. Who asked that question, Jen?
Um, Let me find it again. Edgar?
Edgar, that's an excellent question. One thing, if you guys are going to use pre-existing data, do yourself a solid. Harmonize the data first. And what I mean by harmonizing the data is, let me pull up the spreadsheet. So what you want to make sure is that you set like these rows here. So when you go up here, you want to make sure that you set these to a number, or you want to send this to a date. You want to make sure that you format the date correctly. If you're doing dollars, you want to make sure that you harmonize it to currency. To give you another example, one of the things that I do is every month I get a report from my insurance company of reserve changes. Did they increase the reserve or the incurred dollars or the paid dollars or whatever? Also, the open and close status of the claim or the whether or not it's under litigation. So what I do is every month I get it on the first of the month. I go in, I open the spreadsheet, I create a table, I harmonize the data. So I set all the dates as short dates, which is this is a short date here. Right here is I'm showing a short date. And then I'll set all the dollars to currency. And then what I'll do is I'll drop it into a folder and I'll have Power Automate watch the folder. And every day at 3 o'clock, it'll go and see is any of these or any of those files that I added new. When you set it in there, it'll set a flag as pending. So it'll look to see does anything have a pending status? And if it does, run. And what it'll do is it literally goes into my um, SharePoint list that I use for tracking my incidents, and it'll say, is this claim number on the incident tracking form match this one over here on this Excel spreadsheet? If it does, update, open close status, all the dollar amounts, and whether or not there's a litigation flag. It'll do that and it'll run through every one. So then once a month, I can say that this dollar amounts sheet here is correct.
David, Benjamin has a question about the dashboards. Is it easy to create different dashboards and graphs that are visible by different permission levels, like one for safety managers, one for general employees?
Yes, and what you do is you create a different dashboard. And so what'll happen is when you click publish right here, it'll publish it to your workspace, which is the only way that I do it is I publish it to my workspace. So what you do is I create one for safety managers, I create one for operations, and I create one for leadership. So there are three, and it's all using the same data. I just have it visualized differently. Like, for example, like over here, I'll have like my site safety managers. I want to know how many site inspection reports they're doing in a specific time period. So I don't share this with anybody outside my department. So that's for me to use um, to manage my team. But like this is one that I use. I share this with this dashboard that I'm sharing with y'all is only for me. There's one for leadership, there's one for operations, there's one for the safety team that they can use and manipulate. And what it is every time you publish or every time you create a new one, like I'll duplicate this one, I'll rename it, I'll remove all of the tabs down here on the bottom that I don't want to share. I'll save it, publish it, and I only share them that link. So if I need to go in and update one, I just open up that one dashboard and share it with that one group. I found to me that's the easiest way to do it, but you can't say like, oh, I want to right click on this one here and say, oh, I can only give them this one group access to that one tab. It doesn't work that way.
So it's more those customized dashboards.
Correct.
Another,
Excellent question.
it is a great question. I'm learning a lot. James just asked how will the SIR and SSW work with this type of form? I think you had mentioned
So
that as one of your examples.
yes, so where is it? So here's my site inspection report data here. So this is so just to understand this, each one there's different sets of data. So here, let me open this tab. So I have one that's geotab data. So we use geotab for our um, GPS tracking for our vehicles. I have one spreadsheet that's made for hours. This is the incident tracking system, the site inspection, the site safety walk. So you add um, buckets of data. And the nice thing about Power BI is you can mix and match different ones, like my OSHA 300 log. Where is it? Here. This one here pulls the hours from this hours report, which is a totally different SharePoint list than the incident tracking system that pulls all of the OSHA data. So you can tie different groups of data together and visualize them on the same platform. And for the site inspection report, I use this to identify deficiencies in a very specific area. And I have it rendered in different ways. It just depends on what I want to look at. So like the SIR graphs here, I only want to look at, how many SAT versus unsat for a specific time frame. Or you can multi-select if you want when you set them up. I think it's this one. Yeah, there. That's all of them put together. So I can look and see, where are my issues? Or if I only want to look at unsatisfactory, you can look at that. So you just check condition, only want to look at unsatisfactory or just satisfactory or just imminent danger. So you can choose how you want to select the data. And this is all being pulled by a form. So the form for the site inspection reports um, is here. So this is what my report form looks like. So essentially broken down by region, and then you pick the area, and then let me scroll down to the bottom. So you pick the superintendent, the foreman, whatever the category is that you want to harmonize it into. So I use a standard set of what I did is I went to the OSHA standards and I said, these are the OSHA standards. These are what I want to classify them into. I don't care about the standard numbers, but I put those in there. And then I had it, if I need to do training, I can add training to it. I add a description, the condition. Was it corrected while I was there? If so, what was the resolution? And if I'm going to attach a photo of the incident, and then I put it there. So I can show before and after. So if it was an issue that I identified, and then did I correct it? So I can show how it was corrected. And then when I click submit, it emails a copy of that report to me with the findings.
The great questions. Brian, thanks for making sure Michelle's question didn't go unanswered. So Michelle had asked, how do you ensure the forms created are meeting quality standards like in the ISO 9001, 45001?
Respectfully, I don't, because I don't adhere to those standards. So I don't know what the requirements would be for that, but you can you can outline the forms any way you want. And for quality control, one of the things that we consistently do is we're consistently reviewing the submissions that we get. Like when you're outside, like when I give people outside the safety department access to my forms, I get all kinds of crazy replies. So it's constantly reading what's being submitted, like the JHAs, for example. Out of my 75 superintendents and 200 foremen, I may have, 10 guys that we need to remind, hey, you're not giving us enough information here. Go do this again. So we'll take their JHA that they submitted, we'll forward it back to them with our comments and go, this is unacceptable. You're not, this is your pencil whip that. Let's do it again. So then what I'll do is I'll go mark, I have in my, hang on one second. I have in my SharePoint list at a place for me to put notes and whether or not we had to correct an issue. So nobody else has access to that, but I do. So I have a record of what was addressed, what was corrected. Do we need anything? There's another form that I use for like disciplinary action. Do I need disciplinary action? The one thing that I wish that we could do was tie it back to whether or not we issued somebody corrective action in the past, but that's HR's function. So we'll write somebody up, like a couple weeks back, we wrote somebody up, and HR was like, "You've written this guy up 3 times for the same event. You can't give him another verbal warning. You need to suspend him." So we're like, "Oh, so we'll go back and we'll pull that one down. We can go in and delete it from the SharePoint list, recreate it as a suspension, send it over to the team member and the foreman or the superintendent so they can schedule his time off."
I think those are all the questions that I saw in the chat in the Q&A. Again, we are looking at creating this into a class, either half day, full day, to dive deeper into all of these. So if you're interested in that, I'm going to put my email in the chat. I know David said we can share the PDF of this presentation, and
Yeah,
David,
I'll email it
put
to you,
your
Jen.
contact information in the chat as well.
Mm, yep, I can do that.
Just double checking to make sure I didn't miss any.
There you go.
And I will put my email in. So with that, I think there's no more questions. We can close the webinar. We can hang out for a minute more or two just to make sure a question doesn't come up. But certainly reach out to me or David if you have any other questions, and we'd love to hear your thoughts about a class that dives a little bit deeper into this.
I really appreciate all your great questions. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Your
really.
questions help me be at a bit, make me think more logically about what I'm doing.
And thank you for joining us on a Friday during your lunch hour. We appreciate that. We hope you have a great weekend. So we'll just hang for a minute just to make sure we didn't miss anything. David, thanks for your time today too.
Oh, no problem. It's my
Um,
pleasure. I love showing off what we can do because anything we can do to move the industry forward and helping other safety people be better at their craft is, I'm all about it.
I agree. And to spend all that time in paperwork is not helping people.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful. And I wonder down the road how much like then you add on AI, right? And then
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Um, but yeah, this was great. Definitely some interest in the class. So I'll share that with Sean and we can have another meeting to discuss that time frame. All right. Well, it looks like we've answered all questions. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. David, thank you so much. I'll set up a meeting with Sean.
Okay. Hey, once I get my internet back up at the house, I'll send you those documents.
All right. Thank you. Have a
You're
good weekend,
welcome.
everyone. Bye.